Hi guys, it's been a while since my last video. I haven't posted anything since December. I'm not going to go into the total ins and outs as to why, but as there are 68, I think, of you now, which is not a lot compared to most channels, but to me that's far more than I ever thought I'd get people watching my videos and liking them. So thank you all so much. I'm so glad that you like the content that I have been creating, and I'm hoping to get back to doing it regularly now. As everyone knows, at the moment we've COVID, the whole world has gone upside down, and here in England we're on our fourth lockdown, third lockdown, feels like fourth, third or fourth lockdown. This time it really hasn't done well for my mental health. Which is why I do this channel in the first place. Art is my go-to when I'm feeling low and I'm feeling rubbish. I've got a history of depression and anxiety and all that fun stuff, and this is what I do to make myself feel better, and I haven't even been motivated to do that since December. I've been really struggling since the last video. What I have been doing is a lot of sculpting for myself. Generally, I got my first block of polymer clay at Christmas, and I've been playing a lot with that. So I'll show you as I'm talking now a few of the sculptures that I've done. I'm at a stage now where I think that whereas I'm not an expert, I can add some of that to this channel as well. On top of not stopping anything I've been doing, I'll still be doing the acrylic painting and the drawing and the pastels, but I'm adding another thing. I'll be adding some sculpting. Now, I've attached a video to this. It is not the greatest. And again, as I said, I've been doing this since December. I am not an expert, but what I am is very good at getting competent in a short space of time when it comes to arts. And that's because I've been doing various art forms for the past 20 years or more. And so I know what I'm looking for in form and in shading and things like that with different things. So I tend to, and also I have a tunnel vision when I'm learning something new. So I've been doing nothing but this in my spare time, but not been motivated to do the drawings or anything to add to the channel. So I am sorry if I let you guys down, but these are what I've been making. And this is a bit of a comedy piece. The angles are rubbish, and the my head gets in the way a few times, so I do apologise again for that. But I've worked all that out in this video, so hopefully the next video I do, when it comes to the sculpture, will be a lot better for you. I've worked out better camera angles and things with this one. So that's what I've been doing and why I've been away. I'm hoping to be back because I am struggling a bit. I'm going to be aiming for 2 videos a month instead of my video every week that I had been doing. If I'm feeling well, then I'll be doing more, but I'm sorry if that's letting you down, and I'm sorry if I've let you down in the past few months by not being here to upload content. But thank you for the 68 of you that are around. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you all for just subscribing to the channel. It's amazing. Again, I didn't think I'd ever get that many people wanting to see what I'm putting out and what I'm doing, so thank you very much. But now I'll get on and post this video, but please bear in mind it is what it is. So here you go. So this video isn't really going to be a tutorial as such. Occasionally I'll tell you what I'm doing when I see it in the videos, but it's more about the clay itself and what I'm using than exactly how I'm sculpting things. This is my first video I've made of me working with polymer clay, so I found the angles were a bit funny and it wasn't quite right for me to be doing a sort of this is how I did it video. The tools that I found most useful for the polymer clay I'm using were wax sculpting tools. You can get them really, really cheaply on Amazon or eBay or any other selling sites. Many selling sites are available. The wax sculpting tools are the silver tools you'll see me using. I find them really, really helpful, and they're really cheap and they do the job really, really well. You don't need a ton of equipment to start when you're working with polymer clay. I just had a small kit that I have added to because I wanted to do more things. But really, a wax sculpting kit
I've got the Super Sculpey, or the Sculpey, sorry, ball styluses and tools, because I find them very helpful for blending and adding dents and things like that. And some sort of a craft knife is helpful, but really you don't need much more of that. I apologise for my head sticking in the way in this video. As I said, I'm working out angles. I think for my next video, which I will be showing you more what I'm doing, I've worked out a better angle. This angle will change throughout the video. This piece is just a silly piece. I've only been sculpting since Christmas time, so I'm not, by no means, as with anything, as I always say, I am not an expert. I do this because I love doing it. I do this because it helps with my mental health. If people have been following this channel for a little bit, I've talked before, I suffer with depression and anxiety on and off. I have done since I was a teenager, and I use art and crafts to help me cope with that and to shut the world out an awful lot. But I figure, whereas I'm not the best artist and certainly not the best polymer clay artist, I've only just started, if I'm slightly more experienced than you, then you can learn a bit from me and then go on to the artists that really can go in depth and know more what they're talking about. But I think as long as you can pick up some tips, or I can give some helpful handy hints and tips along the way, whether it be drawing or sculpting or whatever, then I've done some sort of a service and passed things on, because I think it's good for up and coming people to be able to get hints and tips as freely and widely available as possible, because why would we not want to share so that others can have the joy of making themselves. This clay that I'm using for making this head that you see me working on here is Super Sculpey Firm. I use that because I can get more details in without worrying about smooshing them. If you can see the amount of times that I'm moving this head around all over the place, if I was using one of the softer clays, it's much easier to erase what I've just spent half an hour working on. The top tip I can give to anyone who is using clay is make sure that you condition it well first. That means you need to be working it through your hands and kneading it and moving it around, or running it through a pasta machine is another good way to do it. You need that clay to be nice and soft and malleable and warm. You need to have moved and mixed all the plasticizers inside the polymer clay, and the oils, they need to have mixed in thoroughly with it again for it to work optimally and properly for you. If you don't move it all around and condition that clay before you start, you're going to really struggle to get any sort of blending right. You're going to struggle for it not to be crumbly, and it's not going to turn out very well in the oven either. So make sure you have really spent time, at least say 5 minutes, conditioning that clay before you start. In this a lot, you'll see I've got a sort of snake of clay in my fist. That's to keep the clay warm after I've conditioned it, so that it's easy to blend and add on. What you see me here doing here is a armature. If you're going to have anything of any size, you are going to need to make some sort of an armature. That is the supporting structure inside of your sculpture. It needs to be strong enough to hold the sculpture up in the oven, and the reason you do this is with polymer clay, the thicker the polymer clay is, the more likely it is to crack and go funny in the oven. Also, it's expensive, and you don't want to be using too much clay. Really, you want no more than ½ an inch worth of clay, ideally, in any one spot. I mean, that's give or take. Obviously, there are ways and reasons that you'd have more, but the best way to do that is most people will use tin foil and wire. So I've made the frame, I've drilled holes into a base, and I've made the frame of my tent that I'm making with wire, and held it together with another smaller gauge wire, and then I have stuffed it full of tin foil and then held that together with masking tape. At one point earlier, you'll see me with a hammer. I'm trying to get as much air out of that structure as possible. You do not want air underneath your clay. It will pop and burst and swell your structure in the oven and ruin your piece. So you don't want any air pockets or anything underneath, if at all possible. So I've covered that whole thing with the polymer clay, and I'm just making sure everything is the right size for the head that I made, because I want this guy to be looking shocked and scared. He's trying to escape this tent. he's been a bit startled first thing in the morning. So he's shirtless and he's just trying to escape the tent. So I wanted to make sure the tent was the right sort of size. I didn't need it to be accurate for real life, really, because it's just a silly piece. It's just a comedy novelty piece that was for an event that I was part of. Apparently nobody else has my sense of humour, so he's now available in my Etsy shop if anyone's interested in him. So I've attached him with skewer, a bamboo skewer to the tent itself, and then I've added extra clay around him to form his shoulders and his neck, and I've now added some aluminium wire that's been wrapped with a smaller gauged wire, and I've pushed that into the structure and secured it with a product called Bake and Bond by Sculpey. That'll just help when it bakes, it'll secure it into place. I then covered that with my more clay to make his arms. I've done that at the top of the bottom when they want to. Now this clay that I'm using on this bit here, I'm trying to make the flaps of the tent that he's running out of. I don't need to cover the entire tent, I just need to make little flaps and then blend it in. The reason it's a different colour is because I'm using a product called Cos-clay. Cos-clay is like a rubber-based clay. And the reason I'm using that is because these are a bit thin and a bit wobbly. I wanted them to have a slight bend to them if you knocked them so that they don't shatter like and snap off as easily as normal clay would. So you can mix those products very easily. And so I'm just blending everything in. I've put another thin sheet of the Super Sculpey over the edge of that just to try and make it look like a tent, and then the internal tent flaps. I'm now also using the Cos-clay to sculpt his hands. I'm still getting used to Cos-clay. I much prefer Super Sculpey Firm for the hands. But again, because his hand is sticking out, I wanted to make sure that they had less chance of, if they were knocked, of snapping off. I mean, it's not perfect, but I find this stuff's really good for just helping stop that from happening. You don't want them to snap off. So again, I've tried to make him look as startled as possible. Now I'm trying to add some ripples into the tent on this bit, and so I've just done little snakes or rolls of clay, and I'm blending them in sort of the position that I thought that material would be in these circumstances. If you want to know how fabric sort of lies, then have a look at your own clothes, or hang a sheet over something, or a towel or anything like that over a chair or something. You can see how fabric sits, or look online for reference photos as well. Pixabay is good for reference photos, as is Unsplash, or as you're not actually copying it, you can just look online for fabric and draping fabric, and that will see where the folds and lines of different things sit, just to make it look a bit more real. As I said, this is a comedy piece. I am now making the armature and then covering it with clay for the back side of my piece. As I said, this is very silly. This is a bear who's on the scavenge, and he's rudely awakened this poor man. And so I've just did the back half of the bear, and I've got a bamboo skewer again, wrapped a load of tin foil around a small wire structure, and I'm just sticking that into the back as best I can and working out how best this is going to sit. I've decided halfway through this I will be changing that base. The base wasn't quite right for what I was after, so the base will change shortly. But at the moment I'm just trying to get the bear to the size I want it, get it sit in the piece as I want it to sit, and I'm not worried if it's blended so much at the moment, because I'm going to put a ton of detail over the top. Oh my god, this bear took me forever, 2.5 evenings at least, just to cover this with fur. You'll see why in a minute. He was a nightmare. That tool, that gold tool or bronze tool, you can see is something I've made myself. I find it works really well to help smooth out my clay. I've taken a brass tube and a guitar wire and just stuck the guitar wire in and then crimped the tube around it, and I've done them in different sort of sizes, and I find them really good for detailing and for smoothing. You can use them to smooth out your clay, get rid of all the unwanted bits and lumps and bumps. and it's also good for adding small details in as well. Now this here, I'm onto the process where it was a nightmare. I've done a roll of clay, a snake of clay, sausage clay, whatever you want to call it, and I've rolled that out, and then the very end I'm rolling into a slight point and cutting them into tiny little triangles and then attaching them one by one to my bear, as you can see here. And then I'm going over each of them with a bluntish tool to add the hair detail, and then wash, rinse and repeat. As I say, this took me far longer than I thought it was going to. I don't know why I thought it wouldn't take that long, but this is hours and hours and hours of work just getting this fur in place. So I've sort of sped it up an awful lot, trying to show you how I did it, but again, this isn't really a how-to video as such, because I had all different angles and lighting and wasn't sure quite how it was all going to work. So for this whole piece, I'm actually using Super Sculpey Medium for the tent and for the bear. I probably should have used Super Sculpey Firm for the bear, because when I finished doing the fur, I had to go back over it, and in certain areas, because I'd smushed some of the detail, I just had to go back over. I said not a big deal this time, because they were quite flat, the details, but as you see, just went over then a few areas where it was a problem. Now, a bit that I did off camera, because I didn't realise, I added some black Primo just to, or was it Fimo? Black Fimo, sorry, just to the inside of that tent, because I realised I hand paint my sculptures, and oh my goodness, I did not want to be dealing with trying to get under there to get the darkness in, with a bear's bum in the way and tent in the way. So I cheated and used some black Sculpey to do that, and then I'm just doing the same as I did on the other side to add the tent. The inside flaps are done with the Cos-clay, and then the outer flap area I've just used a strip of Super Sculpey Medium. Now I've decided that he needs hair, so I've just added some bacon bond to the top of his head, and this is just Super Sculpey Original I've used here because I didn't need any specific details keeping. I'm going to be covering his head with Cos-clay anyway. So I've just put a base layer of Super Sculpey Original over that bacon bond. I'm adding some hair details into the direction that I want it to go, and now I'm just adding sort of triangles and wisps of Cos-clay all over his head, because I wanted him to look like he'd just been woken up and startled, and his hair's a bit all over the place, he's dishevelled, he's terrified, yeah. Again, I'm sure there are better ways to do this. This is just how I did it, because I'm still learning. But as I say, I just wanted to... I like adding all the artwork I'm doing to my channel, and learning something new is good. And if you can learn along with me, then brilliant, all the better. So that's why I'm doing it. As I said, there might be better ways out there. If you found a better way to do sort of dishevelled hair, please leave it in the comments below. Let me know. I think it's good to learn together. It would be nice to start a little art community over here at Jackie Brown Creative. I'd really like that if that was at all possible. One thing I will tell you about this sculpture is I've lost all the footage of me painting it. Well, I say lost. I didn't so much lose it as I recorded an entire video of me painting a sculpture of my palette. So it really wasn't helpful to you. Again, I'm still learning when it comes to the sculpture, where to put things and how to do things, but not a single bit of me painting the actual sculpture itself worked out. So I figured I'd just leave it out this time. I will do my next project. I will make sure I put up properly and definitely do a painting. But all I do when I'm painting polymer clay is I just use acrylic paints, and I use a lot of the techniques that I use when I'm just doing my normal paintings, to be honest. It's just in 3D this time. So apologies for that when that comes up a bit later on. I'm just adding more wrinkles and fabric wrinkles to the tent like I did earlier. I'm just using some sausages, or snakes, rolls, whatever you want to call them, of clay, in the direction that my reference photos sort of show me that tent directions go. I mean, I'm not being as accurate as I need to be because this tent is kind of crumpling. It's got a guy running out of one side, it's got a bear coming in the other side, so it doesn't really need to be hugely accurate. It just needs to give the impression of fabric. And again, that's why I didn't go over this with another layer of clay when I first did the tent, because I knew it was sort of a crumpling tent. It didn't need to be accurate. Now, this part of the tent, which is going to be pinned down, like tents sort of come out, this sort of camping tent, again, because an area is sticking out, I've used the Cos-clay, just because when it's baked again, it's a bit more malleable, a bit more soft. It's not going to break as easily as the Super Sculpey would have done. So I've just done a strip of that and then blended it in. It's like with things like this, you do not need to actually put clay over the entire piece. Like, you don't have to go, oh, this is a flap, it's going to go over the whole side. You just need to add the bit where the flap's sticking out, blend it in, and it will look like it should do. So don't waste your clay. And all I'm doing now is adding clay softener over the whole thing, and that just gets rid of any fingerprints or unwanted bits and bobs and bumps and lumps. It helps smooth things right through. And here are some pictures of my finished piece. So I hope that you found that helpful.
I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please leave me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon. That way you'll be notified of any new content that I post. For now though, bye guys.